Hey folks! Today we're talking about learning objectives, specifically the use of Bloom's taxonomy for writing them. Our learning objectives are important for a few reasons. For one, this is partially because they let students know what's expected of them, but they're also really important to us as educators because they help us decide how to teach the content, as well as how we're going to assess our learners. The article mentions the importance of using measurable verbs, and they include Bloom's taxonomy in Figure 4. They also make links to learning objectives in selecting our teaching strategies and our assessment strategies. So I thought today we'd delve deeper into Bloom's taxonomy since it's something I get a lot of questions about. The taxonomy of educational objectives, or Bloom's taxonomy as you've probably heard it called, is a framework for classifying statements of what we expect or intend students to learn as a result of our instruction. The taxonomy was first published in 1956, although work did commence on it back in 1949. It was initially created so faculty at various universities could exchange test items. The taxonomy would allow them to create banks of items with each measuring the same educational objective. This initiative was led by Benjamin Bloom, hence Bloom's taxonomy, and he hoped that this would reduce the labor of preparing annual comprehensive exams. The taxonomy was updated in 2001, and this revised version is what we can see in a lot of newer sources. When writing learning objectives, there are two parts of the learning objective that we need to be mindful of. There's the noun or content, and the verb or the action piece, and in particular here we're really looking at measurable verbs. These represent two different dimensions, the knowledge dimension, the noun, and the cognitive process dimension, which is the verb. There are four types of knowledge in the knowledge dimension: factual knowledge, like terminology and other basic elements that a learner needs to know to solve a problem in that discipline. Conceptual knowledge, which is the interrelationship among those basic elements within a much larger structure that enables them to function together. So this would be more things like classifications, general principles, theories, models, things like that. Procedural knowledge, or how to do something, for example, knowing how to start an IV. And metacognitive knowledge, which is knowledge about cognition in general, as well as an awareness of and knowledge about one's own cognition. And the cognitive process dimension is what I think most people think of when they hear the term Bloom's taxonomy, because this is the pyramid diagram that's often associated with this. The original 1956 version has 6 categories in the cognitive dimension, and they are knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. These were ordered from simple to complex, concrete to more abstract. These categories were seen as being a cumulative hierarchy, so you had to master the more simple categories before you could master the more complex ones. While the revised taxonomy from 2001 still sees these cognitive processes as differing in complexity, it isn't seen as such a strict hierarchy anymore. And like the original version, the revised 2001 version has 6 categories, but they are a little bit different. They've renamed all of the categories so they're verbs rather than nouns. So knowledge is now remember, comprehension is understand, application is apply, analysis is analyze. And they've also interchanged the order of the 2 categories at the top of the taxonomy. So synthesis is now create, and it's been bumped up the pyramid, and evaluation is now evaluate, and it's been bumped down one place. And this article by Tuma and Nassar gives some great examples of applying this taxonomy to surgical education. Here's some examples related to hernias. So remember or memorize the types of hernias, understand the predisposing factors of hernias, apply knowledge to diagnose a hernia, analyze the diagnostic value of different repair approaches, evaluate alternative hernia options in complex situations, for example, a patient with ascites, and create a new approach for repairing hernias, for example, modifying mesh application or placement. We can put the knowledge and cognitive process dimension together in a taxonomy table to get a quick visual indication of the extent to which more complex kinds of knowledge and cognitive processes are involved in our teaching. So here we have the knowledge dimension in the vertical axis, and the cognitive process dimension is in the horizontal axis, and the learning objective is placed in the cell where the two meet. And as I alluded to earlier, we can use Bloom's taxonomy in writing our learning objectives, which can then in turn help us select appropriate teaching strategies and appropriate assessment strategies. And we can do this by looking at the type of knowledge we want to teach, as well as the cognitive process dimension. For example, problem-based learning is a great strategy for some of those more cognitively complex learning objectives. For example, our previous example of evaluating alternative hernia treatment options in complex situations could potentially be a nice fit for PBL. And that's all for now on learning objectives and Bloom's taxonomy. Let me know if you have any questions about Bloom's taxonomy, and as always, I will see you all online.
Created using Powtoon.